Hello again, and welcome back to Character Creation. Today we'll be taking a look at Dungeons & Dragons 2024, or D&D 5.5. The character sheet in question today is the Wizards of the Coast official 2-page fillable version. I will leave a link in the description below to this character sheet so that anyone can go ahead and just grab it and use it. So let's go ahead and take a look at this character sheet real quick. First off, on our first page, we have a very nice reference sheet. In the top corner, we have our character's self. Name, background, species, class. Moving up a little bit, we have armor class and hit points in case or for when you're in combat. A little below that, we have speed, size, weapons, and damage. Great things for dealing with situations. To our left side, we have our attributes and skills, as well as our proficiencies, letting us know what our character is capable of and how well they are capable of doing it. And on the right side, we have our class features, our traits, and our feats, giving us our special abilities. All in all, this is a great first page. It references almost everything you will need for a standard encounter, be it a combat situation or a puzzle. Our second page is also pretty good. We have a little blurb here with our spellcasting, where we're going to go ahead and get our spellcasting numbers out of it. We have a spell slot list, where you can list out the number of spell slots that you have and have expended. And a relatively robust system for cantrips and prepared spells. Now, in some situations, such as a wizard who specializes in ritual casting, you might actually have more prepared spells and cantrips than this sheet could help you with. If that's the case, a simple sheet of paper or a copy of this page again could count as the rest of your prepared spell list. On top of that, if you are a class such as a cleric or a druid, or I guess also a wizard, where you are able to have access to many more spells than you will probably also want to have a reference sheet for the spells that you have but have not prepared. On the right side, we have a little bit of fluff with our appearance, backstory, and personality. And below that, we have a small equipment box. I really like this box. It's great for starting characters, and it kind of leads its way into being a this is what is on your person box, so that you can have a separate sheet to keep track of equipment that you might be keeping in a bag of holding, on the party's carriage, or in a bag that you just kind of drop off in combat, so you don't have to worry about its weight or anything like that. This also gives us a predefined 3 items for attunement. This is really nice because your average character only gets 3 items throughout, or 3 attunement slots throughout their career. And while they might swap out items they're attuned to, the only way to gain more is through very specific item combinations or class features. Though homebrewing, there are some feats and races that do allow for an additional attunement slot in homebrew. We also have the standard 5 coin Dungeons & Dragons system here. This coin works mostly off of steps of 10, where 10 copper coins is equal to 1 silver coin, 100 copper coins or 10 silver coins is equal to 1 gold coin, and 1,000 copper coins or 100 silver coins or 10 gold coins is equal to 1 platinum coin. In the center, you'll notice we skipped Electrum, and that is because Electrum is worth 1/2 of gold. So if we have 10 gold coins, that is the equivalent of 20 Electrum. Electrum is a very unusual currency. Generally, it is only used in settings that have low gold or more gritty statistics. In most campaigns, you will probably never deal with it. As a DM myself, I'll sometimes sprinkle a little Electrum in with other coins as rewards, just to kind of give it a little more flavor, but they are effectively no different than any other coin. So, let's go ahead and break into the meat and potatoes of this. When building a character in 2024, the prescribed method is a 5-step plan. That starts on step 1, choosing your class. Step 2 is determining your origin. Your origin is made up of your background and your species. Step 3, determining your ability scores. Step 4 is choosing your alignment. The alignment is based on the 9-pointed compass of good on top, evil on bottom, lawful to the left, and chaos to the right. And center is unaligned, or neutral, depending on how old your DM is. As you go through, it seems very straightforward. Obviously, if you're a good person, you do good things. If you're a lawful person, you follow the law. But alignment also has a lot to do with your personality. How would you deal with situations? For example, if there's bandits on the road in front of you, do you rush in and fight them? Do you attempt to negotiate with them? Or do you attempt to go around them? All three of which can be lawful good or chaotic evil. Whether you just want to make blood or if you're actually trying to rob the bandits. But finally, the 5th step is to just go through and fill out and finish everything you haven't done yet. I'm gonna be honest, that is a stupid character creation method. It requires lots of bouncing back and forth. There's lots of empty spaces deep into the character creation process that you really need to know before you start selecting things. For example, if you take your class, you are expected to pick skills with your class, but you don't know what attributes you have yet. So, like, sure, obviously you're going to take your primary, but, like, what about the other stuff? So instead, the system we're going to use is going to start with ASI, and then move backwards to our origin, and then our class, before we fill out the rest of the sheet. So, let's go ahead and get into this. I have rolled for my stats. The stats that I have rolled are a result of a 2d6 plus 6, where we re-roll 1s. This dice combination gives us a minimum of 10 with a maximum of 18. On top of that, there is an average of 14. So, as you can probably guess, this is a much higher stat roll than your standard character. The stats that I have rolled are 18, 17, 14, 14, 13, and 10. We are also going to compare this to standard array, which is 15, 14, 13, 12, 10, and 8. As you can see, my highs are much higher and my lows are much higher than standard array. So my character is going to come out better out of the box than a standard array character. But that doesn't mean that standard array is a bad set. For the class and race and background I am going to end up taking, I've decided that I'm going to focus on strength, followed by con, dex, wisdom, and then charisma and intelligence are both equally just throwaway skills or attributes at that point. However, if I was going to take standard array, I would actually take the first two backwards, taking con, then strength, with Dex, Wisdom, Charisma, and Intelligence falling into the similar places. This is because I plan on taking a bonus to my Strength and Constitution. I'm going to take a Strength +2 and a Con +1. With my rolls, that will put my Strength to 20, bouncing it from a +4 to a +5, and my Con to a 17, from a +3 to a +4. With Standard Array, this would also bump my Con from 15 to 16, and my Strength equally from 14 to 16, which will put both of them from a +2 to a +3. So with both of these systems, I am attempting to get my Strength and my Con equally as high as each other. However, remember that ability modifiers are even, or happen on even numbers. So this will give me the most advancement to new even numbers. So with this, we'll go ahead and apply an 18, 14, 17, 10, 14, and 13 to our attributes. We haven't actually gotten to the part where we're adding the pluses from our background, so I'm not going to add those quite yet. But now that we have our basic roles, we can go ahead and have an idea of how our character is going to work. Our character is going to be strong and resilient. He's going to be relatively flexible and relatively wise. He's not much of a looker, but he is slightly better than average, and his intelligence is going to be average. So, next, let's go ahead and build this on and take a step into our origins. So, we are now going to determine our origin, starting with our background. The reason I am starting with our background is because backgrounds grant you 5 abilities, or 5 features. You get your ability score, you get a starting feat, you get 2 skill proficiencies, 1 tool proficiency, and then you get some starting equipment. Another thing that 5.5 did is, while there are a collection of backgrounds that you can choose from, they've also given you the ability to customize backgrounds as you see fit and alter the details for the narrative however you would like. So, we are mostly going to be using a soldier background. However, we are going to change it slightly, and by slightly, we are going to swap out the feat. So, our background is going to be a primal soldier. The soldier's background will give us an ability score modifiers for strength, dex, and con. Now, we can choose to either apply 1 to each of these, or 2 to one of them, 1 to one of them, and 0 to the third. As we stated before, I am actually going to go with the +2, +1, +0 option. So that will give me 20 in my strength and an 18 in my constitution. Next, for our feat, the soldier gains the savage attacker feat, which allows you to, once per turn, re-roll the damage on an attack roll. However, the damage of a damage roll. However, I'm actually going to change this. We are instead going to take the Magic Initiate feat. We will talk about this a little bit later as we kind of build out a bit more. But This is the difference between us and a standard soldier, is that we have taken the Magic Initiate feat. For skills, we're still taking the soldier skills, so we get athletics and intimidation. No questions asked. We don't get to choose between these, it's just these two. So we can go ahead and add proficiency to those now. For our tools, we get a gaming set. And just for simplicity, we're going to go ahead and go with dice. Now, for equipment, why is there an extra T in there? For equipment, you get to choose between A or B. A is a series of items: a spear, a short bow, 20 arrows, the gaming set that you are proficient in, a healer's kit, a quiver, which is a carrying case for arrows, traveler's clothing, and a purse with 14 gold pieces. B is 50 gold pieces cash money in your hand. We are actually going to end up taking the 50 gold pieces. Now, if your character can use them, choosing the equipment from your background and your class are not horrible ideas. They are usually well-tempered sets of equipment, and using this as an example, a barbarian, we'll get into it a little later, would be proficient in using both the spear and the short bow, as well as the equipment that you get as a barbarian. So it isn't a horrible set of choices. I'm just personally choosing to go with the cash option and shopping for items myself. So we can now go ahead and get rid of these as we have chosen our background. Also, now that our ability scores are finished, we can quickly go ahead and apply their modifiers. For those who don't know, ability modifiers are your separation from the number 10 in even steps. This means that 12, 14, 16, 18, and 20 each gain +1, where 8, 6, 4, 2, and 0 will each gain -1, with 0 in any attribute being equivalent to death. Depending on your attribute would depend on how you die, but if any attribute reaches the number 0, your character is unplayable and effectively dead. And in many situations in which a stat does reach 0, it is probably under the effect of an undead creature or similar curse, and your character is actually probably now trying to eat your friend's brains. So try to stay away from 0. However, this can be a little complicated to remember. So for me, an easier way to do it is to divide by 2, subtract by 5. This works on any number regardless of the size. For 20, we can take our 20, divide it by 2, and we now have 10. Subtract that by 5, and we have 5, which is the modifier for a 20. The reason this works is because everything is in steps of 2. So we divide it by 2, so it's now every step. And the separation is from 10. However, we also divided the 10 by 2. So we're subtracting 5 because that's half of 10. So using this method, we can go through with the rest of our stats. Dexterity is a 14, which gives us 2. That's also wisdom's. Intelligence is a 10. We don't need to separate it from 10. That's a 0. And Constitution is a 4. Charisma's a little bit weirder because it's an odd number, but we can effectively do the same thing. 13 divided by 2 will give us 6.5. When divided by, or subtracted by 5, that gives us 1.5. However, in D&D, you always drop fractions and you round down. So we just drop that fraction. The 1.5 becomes a 1. Or even earlier, 6.5 becomes a 6, neither of which change our answer. That 13 is a modifier of 1. Now, let's go ahead and take a step to our species and finish our origin. For this character, I've decided to go with the species of Goliath. Goliaths are the descendants of giants. You start off as size medium, however, your character starts at 7 to 8 feet tall. You also gain a speed of 35 feet, which is faster than your average character. On top of this, Goliaths gain 3 species traits. Those traits are Giant Ancestry, Powerful Build, and Large Form. Before we go into these traits, I would also like to note that depending on what versions or other games you might be coming from, species is the equivalent of an ancestry, or a race, or a bloodline, or a heritage. There are a handful of other terms, but I believe that's the majority of them. However, species no longer gives an ability score modifier. That now comes from background, which we have already gone over. So we're not missing an ability score modifier because we got it from our background, which means we don't need to worry about it for our species. So, starting off, Giant's Ancestry. Giant's Ancestry is a feature that we can use a number of times equal to our proficiency bonus per long rest. I said bonus, not donus. This means starting at level 1, you can use it twice per day. The options, and you only get one option, you have to choose it at creation, is Cloud Giant's Jaunt. As a bonus action, you can teleport 30 feet. Fire Giant's Burn. When you deal damage, you can deal an additional 1d10 fire damage. Frost Giant's Chill. When you deal damage, you can deal an additional 1d6 cold damage and reduce your target's speed by 10 feet. Hill Giant's Tumble. When you deal damage to a large or smaller creature, you can force them into the prone condition. Stone Giant's Endurance. When you would take damage, you could spend your reaction to roll a 1d12 plus your Constitution modifier to reduce that damage by the total rolled, which means at level 1, you could potentially ignore 16 damage. And finally, Storm Giant's Thunder. When you take damage from a creature that is within 60 feet of you, you can spend your reaction to deal 1d8 thunder damage to that creature. Honestly, all of these are really good. I've kind of already let it spill that I plan on building a Barbarian, but a Barbarian and a Goliath together, these are all really good things. Dealing extra damage, knocking somebody down so you can pummel them while they're on the ground, taking less damage, hurting somebody who tries to hurt you. These are all really good. But my favorite is actually the Cloud Giant's Jaunt. And that's simply because a teleport is amazing. The ability to just spend your bonus action to teleport 30 feet to a space you can see means that you can teleport through windows, you can teleport into buildings as long as you can see have a hole, a keyhole, or a window to look through. You can teleport on top of people, underneath things, across gaps. It's just a really good power. And the fact that you only get 2 of them per day for a utility ability is a nice trade-off. where with the damaging abilities, only getting 2 of them a day can kind of feel a little gimmicky. Like, oh, I can punch harder, but only twice. Next, we have Powerful Build. Powerful Build gives us advantage on any ability check used to make or to end the grappled condition. So if somebody grapples you, you have advantage to breaking free. Also, you count as 1 size larger for determining your carrying capacity. So the standard carrying capacity is your strength times 15. We have a 20, so that's 300. With Powerful Build, we actually get that times 2, doubled. So it's actually 600 pounds. Next, we have Large Form. Now, sadly, we won't have access to Large Form because Large Form is locked behind level 5. But this character, in theory, will reach it, so we'll go over it real quick. Starting at level 5, you can change your size to large as a bonus action. This transformation will last for 10 minutes, and for the duration, you have advantage on strength checks, and your speed is increased by 10 feet. You can use this ability once per long rest. One of the amazing things about this is Large Form and Powerful Build actually stack. So when you take that size up from medium to large, your Powerful Build sizes up as well from large to huge, which doesn't give you just double the strength, but times or double it again. In this case, with our 20, that is 1,200 pounds. And with D&D, that means that you can activate your large form, pick up the party's 1,000-pound horse and 200-pound carriage, and run away faster than that horse can. Especially since you have your Giant's Jaunt, you could actually teleport over a ravine or something that the horse wouldn't be able to pass. It's a nice and fun little ability. How often you'll need to do something like that, you'll probably end up just going big and punching people harder, but it is always fun to have utility. While we're down here, let's go ahead and also finish out our Magic Initiate trait, or feat. Remember, this is our origin feat that we got from our background. So, Magic Initiate is a feat that allows you to pick one of 3 spell lists. The Cleric spell list, the Druid spell list, or the Wizard spell list. We are going to choose the Druid spell list. You also get to choose a mental stat to use these spells with. We're going to go ahead and choose Wisdom. Though the spells we're going to choose aren't really going to matter. This could be a fun way to give your wizard the ability to cast healing spells, or to give a cleric or druid something fun like Magic Missile as a combat spell. But now that we have our druid spell list selected, we can choose 2 cantrips and 1 first level spell. One of the interesting things is that first level spell is always prepared, and on top of that, you can cast it once per long rest for free. And if you have spell slots of your own, you can spend those spell slots to cast this spell. Which means if, again, say you're a wizard who takes Cure Wounds or Healing Word, you could use your spell slots to power that spell, including higher level spell slots to get the casting at higher level benefit. So, the 2 cantrips and the 1 first level spell we are going to choose, starting with cantrip number 1, is Shillelagh. Now, I've heard this said Shillelagh, Shillelagh, Shillelagh. I believe Shillelagh might actually be the proper pronunciation, but I've been saying Shillelagh since I was a toddler. So we're going to keep it that way so I don't get tongue-tied or confused. Shillelagh is a very nice spell here. It costs a bonus action to cast, and it does have a VSM requirement, so you must speak the spell, you must do a hand sign, and you must have a material. The material in question is mistletoe. Now, when you cast this spell, for 1 minute, you can make a club or a quarterstaff, which also means effectively any stick you can find on the ground, into a weapon imbued with nature's power. For the duration, you can use your spellcasting ability instead of strength for the attack and damage rolls of melee attacks using this weapon. Note that it says can and not do, which means you could continue to use strength instead. The weapon's damage die becomes a d8, which is really nice for the club, which starts off at a d4, and pretty good for the quarterstaff, which is a d6, though do note that the quarterstaff does have the versatile feature. The versatile feature for the quarterstaff does put it at a d8 when you two-hand it. However, because Shillelagh doesn't modify the versatile feature of your weapon, you're effectively choosing to wield your quarterstaff as a 1d8 one-handed weapon or a 1d8 two-handed weapon, making it basically pointless to two-hand it. Though a DM might be willing to allow you to read that as you step up to the next damage dice, changing that 1d8 to a 1d10, which a friendly DM might allow and could be a very powerful first level ability. Continuing, when you make an attack with this weapon, it can deal force damage as well as the normal damage. So we can deal force or bludgeoning with both our clubs and our quarterstaffs. Another fun fact is this spell does not require concentration, which means not only can you cast it, you can cast it twice. So you could have a club in each hand. On top of that, 2024 upgraded Shillelagh. The damage die now actually increases as you level up. At level 5, it becomes a 1d10. At level 11, it becomes a 1d12. And at level 17, it becomes a 2d6. Note, if your DM is friendly and allowing you to use the quarterstaff's versatile to step that up, that would be at level 5, a d12, at level 11, 2d6, and at level 17, 3d6. Now, I'm not going to push too far on that because it's not official. That is entirely homebrew, but it is reasonable homebrew and worth asking your DM for. But one real fun fact about that is by 11, that means that you are dealing martial two-handed weapon damage with a one-handed weapon. Next, we're going to use Elementalism. Elementalism is the new utility spell added to the Artificers, Druids, Sorcerers, and Wizards in 5.5. I'm really liking this spell, and we'll kind of get to why in a minute, but it has a cast time of an action, has a range of 30 feet, and only requires verbal and semantic components, meaning you only need to speak and do hand signs. When you use this, you can control the elements, and you can choose one of the following 5 features. 4 of these are called the beckons. Beckon Air allows you to create a strong breeze. It is capable of closing and opening doors as long as the doors and... opening and closing doors and shutters as long as the doors and shutters are not being held down by someone or something. So this means you could have a strong enough gust of wind to push something over, to kind of slowly drag something towards yourself. Beckon Earth. You can create a thin shroud of dust or sand to cover surfaces. And you can use or write a single word in your handwriting in a patch of dirt or sand. This one, actually, I've used very recently to shroud dust in a room to make it look like we hadn't been there in some time. I've also used it to put dust in a prison cell next to me, and then used the spell again to slowly write out instructions for the person who was in a cell beside me without having to speak, since it does require verbal components, but that's a little bit different than the guards hearing you planning your prison break. Next, you have Beckon Fire. You can create a thin cloud of harmless embers and colored scented smoke. You can choose the color and scent of the embers and smoke. On top of that, the embers can light candles, torches, and lamps. This means that you can use Beckon Fire to light campfires and fireplaces, which, if you're in a cold environment or a wet environment, can be life-saving. The final beckon is Beckon Water. You create a spray of cool mist that will lightly dampen creatures and objects. Alternatively, you can create 1 cup of clean water in an open container. That water will evaporate in 1 minute. This is infinite water. If you are on the high seas or in a desert, the ability to create infinite water is literally life-saving. It is game-changing. In fact, it says that you create the open water in an the water in an open container. If you put water and you spend, remember, each turn is 60 seconds. So if you spend 54 seconds creating water 9 times and then spend that last turn pouring it into a canteen, the water will evaporate into a canteen that is closed, and it will then condense and turn back into water, allowing you to keep that water even longer, so you can quickly fill up canteens or water barrels for your party in times of drought. The final ability is Sculpt Elements. You can cause dirt, sand, fire, smoke, mist, or water in a 1-foot cube to assume a crude shape. This is amazing because you can effectively use it as a wanted poster. You can go around looking for certain items and you can show them a picture of the person you're looking for. I have used it like that multiple times to describe things or to illustrate different images or events that have happened just to bypass language barriers. Finally, for our level 1 spell, we are going to take Goodberry. Now, Goodberry takes an action to cast, and it uses a verbal, somatic, and material component. And that component is mistletoe, the same as our shillelagh, which means you don't actually have to have a ton of components. You just need those 2 or that 1 sprig of mistletoe, and you can use it to make a stick hit somebody or to cast Goodberry. Goodberry, when you cast the spell, creates 10 berries that are infused with magic and will last for 24 hours. A creature can take the bonus action to eat 1 berry, or generally most DMs will allow you to also use a bonus action to feed someone the berry. When you eat a berry, it will restore 1 hit point worth of health and provide nourishment for an entire day. So we're going to break that up real quick. Remember that healing in D&D starts at 0. So if you have a character who has been hurt, let's just say your friend's been ran over by an elephant. They're sitting at minus 50 hit points and about to die. You could drop 1 Goodberry into their mouth. their minus 50 hit points becomes plus one, or reverts to 0, and they gain 1 hit point, standing back up. Now, with 1 hit point and having been trampled, they're probably going to want to GTFO, but it's a lot easier to run away as a person who is up and conscious than it is as a person who is laying on the floor bleeding to death, or laying on the floor stable but unable to move. On top of that, that second benefit, each berry provides enough nourishment to sustain one creature for 1 day. When mixed with Elementalism's water-giving abilities, you are now the party's den mother. You are creating food, you are creating water, you can create fire. You are their lifeline. You're not healing them as well as like a cleric would, but they need food, they need water, or they die. Magic doesn't care. You can provide that. Next, let's go ahead and step back into our class. We have talked about this a couple of times, but I've decided we are going to be a barbarian. Goliaths actually make really good barbarians since they are large and powerful creatures. Our primal soldier bonus gives us strength and constitution, which are actually the primary and secondary attributes of a barbarian. So this is a really good mix for us right now. We are currently level 1. The hit points for a barbarian are 1d12 because we only have 1 hit point, or 1 hit dice. We will gain more as we level up. Your first level, the hit dice is always maximum, so we don't need to actually roll that d12. We can instead take it as a 12 and add our 4 from Constitution to give us 16 maximum hit points. Next, we have saving throw proficiencies in Strength and Constitution. And our skill proficiencies are a choose 2 for animal handling, nature, perception, and survival. You will notice that athletics and intimidation are also on that list. However, we get that from our soldier background, so we can just ignore those because we already have it. I'm going to take perception because perception is amazing. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take nature. Animal handling and survival would be statistically better numbers for us because wisdom is higher than intelligence. However, I kind of like the idea of our character being like very baseline intelligence, but also being like, oh yeah, I know what that animal is, or oh, I definitely know what type of flower that is. That kind of bleeds back into that primal druidness that we kind of picked up with Magic Initiate. For our weapons, we gain simple and martial weapons. Note that this is all simple and martial weapons, not just melee weapons. So our barbarian is equally skilled with a bow as he is with a sword. The attributes are slightly different, but his proficiencies aren't. For armor, we have light armor, medium armor, and a shield. It's unusual to see a barbarian in armor, but it isn't unheard of. Especially at early levels, you can sometimes forego some weaknesses by putting on armor, but our character isn't really going to have that issue, so we're going to go ahead and just stay unarmored. However, we will be using a shield. And finally, we have our starting equipment, which is again, like the background, a choose A or B. A includes a great axe, 4 hand axes, an explorer's pack, and a purse with 15 gold pieces. B is 75 gold pieces cash, and we're going to go ahead and just take the 75 gold pieces. Now, as I stated with the backgrounds, the Great Axe, the 4 hand axes, and the Explorer's Pack are great for a barbarian. If you don't already have a build in mind, I would suggest taking the starting equipment. So, as we scroll down a little bit, we will now gain our Barbarian class features for level 1. As a level 1, our proficiency bonus is a +2. Our first class feature is Rage. Our second class feature is Unarmored Defense. And our third class feature is Weapon Mastery. Now, Rage is a little bit tricky. You can enter Rage as a bonus action, as long as you are not wearing heavy armor. We're not wearing any armor at all, so that's fine. When you enter Rage, you can enter Rage a number of times equal to your Rage counter on the Barbarian table. At level 1, we have 2 Rages per day. When you finish a short rest, you get back 1 expended use of Rage. However, when you finish a long rest, you will get them all back. So, since we only have 2, we could Rage twice, take a short rest, and Rage a third time. Or we could Rage, short rest, Rage, short rest, Rage, continuously. So it's a little bit of a wiggly one, but I am going to go ahead and put it as 2 short rest, just because the ability to gain at least some resources back on a short rest should be mentioned, and this is really only a notes page. We will have the full description on another sheet that we can reference in questioning. While raging, you gain damage resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, as long as they're non-magical. When you make an attack using strength, you can add what is called your rage damage. At level 1, that is a +2. Note that any attack using strength, whether it's a weapon attack or an unarmed strike, will gain this damage modifier. While you are raging, you gain advantage on all strength checks and strength saving throws. However, you cannot cast spells or concentrate on spells. But remember, our Shillelagh and Goodberry have durations. So your Shillelagh will continue to last for up to 1 minute after raging, and your Goodberries will last for 24 hours. They don't go away when you rage. Also, the duration of raging is a little complicated, so I'm going to kind of say it slowly and about as close to the text as I can. Your rage will last until the end of your next turn. It ends early if you are incapacitated or put on heavy armor. Note, that does mean that if you are fighting a barbarian who is raged, you could just throw a heavy helmet on him and he is no longer raging. If you rage, or if your rage is still active on the start of your turn, you can extend your rage to the next turn by performing one of the following: making an attack roll against an enemy, forcing an enemy to make a saving throw, or using your bonus action to extend your rage manually. Now, do note that the turn you activate your rage will end on the next turn. An attack on the turn you activate your rage does not extend the rage to a third turn. It only keeps it at the next turn. At the start of your next turn, you then have to make an attack, force a saving throw, or spend a bonus action to extend it to the third turn. And your rage has a maximum of 100 turns before it ends automatically. That being said, if your DM pushes you to 100 rounds of combat, your DM is probably a psychopath. I'm not saying leave their table for that, but that is some psycho behavior. Next up, we have unarmored defense. While you are not wearing any armor, your base armor is equal to 10 plus your dex plus your constitution modifier. In our case, that is 16, because our dex is 2 and our con is 4. This will give us an armor class of 16. Do note that you can use a shield and still gain this benefit. So, shortly when we go to equipment, we will buy a shield and actually bump that up to 18. The highest armor class that you could feasibly get with these rolls without needing, thousands of gold. Pretty much the only way to get a higher armor class currently without changing our stats would be to purchase either splint mail, half plate, or full plate, as well as a shield. As splint mail and half plate would both give us 17 AC, and plate mail would give us 18. However, splint mail and plate mail are both heavy armors, so we wouldn't be proficient in them, which means we don't actually get a lot of those benefits. Now, finally, we have Weapon Mastery. Our Weapon Mastery allows us to choose the mastery properties of weapons we are proficient in. We can choose 2 of them. So we are actually going to choose the club and the quarterstaff. The club comes with the mastery property of slow. This means that when we hit a creature with the club, they will lose 10 feet of movement speed. This only can stack once from the slow effect, but could stack with other slowing effects. Next, we have our quarterstaff, which has the topple ability. Topple, every time we hit a creature with a topple weapon, they will have to make a saving throw. The DC for that saving throw is 8 plus the ability modifier we use to make the attack plus our proficiency bonus. So currently, that is a 15. If they fail this, they are knocked prone. So, from here, we can go ahead and start filling out a little bit more detail. Our initiative, we've missed, is a 2. We have no bonuses to our initiative, so it is just dexterity. Our passive perception comes from perception. Passive skills are 10 plus the skills bonus. So passive perception is 14. Note that many skills can, in theory, have a passive check, but most DMs don't recognize passive checks outside of passive perception. How we figure out our proficiency bonuses for our skills are these little dots. Simple enough. If the dot has been clicked, we gain proficiency. So we have a +2, our proficiency bonus, plus our attribute modifier to our strength, saving throws, and athletics. However, we don't gain any proficiency bonus, only the attribute modifier to our dexterity saving throws or skills. And this continues on. Now, one thing you might see often is that most of the numbers will be left blank except for maybe 1. In this case, we'll do nature. If you saw this and the dots weren't existing, you would assume, or the proper thing to do would be to assume that intelligence is not proficient in the saving throws, arcana, history, investigation, or religion. So they are only the modifier. Nature is shown to be different because you are proficient in it, and that symbolizes that you are proficient. As we go to perception, we have a 4, and our intimidation is a 3. So, quickly looking at this, you could see, even if the dots were to disappear, that we are proficient in perception, intimidation, and nature, but not in the other skill checks. Where if we were to look at dexterity, for example, it's not a lot of mental math, but there's a little bit of mental math to go, oh, we have 2s there. Nope, but that's 2 from dex, not 2 from proficiency. And so if there was a case where you needed to be trained in a skill to do something, it's a little harder to read. Next, we're going to go ahead and deal with our weapons and damage. So, we're going to have 2 weapons, a club and a quarterstaff. On top of that, we will have our shield club and our shield staff. This will recognize our shillelagh ability. Now, we are proficient in simple weapons, which the club and the quarterstaff count as. We're also proficient in the club and the quarterstaff in their shillelagh form, because the shillelagh form doesn't actually change the weapon. It just imbues it with additional power. So we'll gain our strength and our proficiency bonus to the attacks. The damage is going to be a 1d4 for the club, but shillelagh is a 1d8. The quarterstaff is a 1d6, but the shillelagh is a 1d8. Each of these will gain a benefit based on the attribute we use to make the attack, which will be strength. Our club and our quarterstaff will both do bludgeoning damage, where our shillelaghs will actually do force damage or bludgeoning damage. As we continue, our club has the light property, as well as the slow mastery. This is also true about our shillelagh club. The quarterstaff has versatile and topple. Technically, our shillelagh's quarterstaff also has the versatile, but as we talked about before, using the versatile to up the damage dice of shillelagh is homebrew. So we're not going to actually write that down. We will only write down the topple note. So, as I've stated before, versatile allows you to take a one-handed weapon and wield it in 2 hands to deal additional damage. However, light weapons I have not gone over. So, light weapons are a little complicated. So, in summary, when you make an attack with a light weapon, you can spend a bonus action to make a second attack with a separate light weapon. So, if you have a club in one hand, you would also need a club or another light weapon in another hand. So, if I hit you with the club in my right hand, as a bonus action, I could hit you with the club in my left hand. The bonus action club does not add the attribute to damage. So it would, instead of being a 1d4 plus 5, it would only be a 1d4 for that bonus damage. However, do note that because the shillelagh isn't a concentration spell, you could have 2 clubs and have both of them be shillelagh'd, giving you a 1d8 plus 5 and an additional 1d8 as a bonus action. So, as we go down, we'll just go ahead and quickly view over everything to make sure we haven't missed anything. Our spellcasting ability doesn't completely matter, but it is wisdom. The modifier for our wisdom is a +2. The spell save DC, which is similar to our Topples DC, it is 8 plus the spellcasting modifier plus your proficiency bonus. So for us, that is a 14. And our spell attack bonus is our spellcasting modifier and proficiency bonus, which is a 4. As we move down, languages. Languages have been pretty much flattened across the game. Every character now starts with 3 languages, one of which is Common. I've gone ahead and chosen Giant and Orc because as a Goliath, I'm very likely to have dealt with giants, and orcs are usually kind of chummy with those larger, bulkier races. For equipment, I am going to choose an Explorer's Pack. An Explorer's Pack will contain a backpack, a bedroll, 10 days of rations, rope, a tinderbox, torches, and flasks of oil for a lamp that we don't have, as well as a water skin. So this is our backpack, our sleeping bag, some food, and a container for water. It will cost us 10 gold pieces. Next, we're going to go ahead and buy a shield. So we're buying just a basic shield, nothing fancy. It's the only shield in the book, actually. And it will also cost us 10 gold. But it will give us a shielded bonus to our armor class, bumping that up to an 18. Finally, we're going to buy a couple of weapons. Now, a good graceful DM will allow you to shillelagh random sticks you find, depending on if the stick is long enough to be a staff or a club. However, it's also nice to have clubs with you. So we're going to go ahead and pick up 2 clubs, one for each hand, and a quarterstaff. Now, these are very light. They are basically just sticks. So a club is only 1 silver coin, and a quarterstaff is 2 silver coins. So we'll have to break a gold, but that will give us 6 silver as change. One thing I would like to note, if you're carrying around a weapon to turn into shillelagh, is that if that weapon is enchanted, it still can be shillelagh'd without affecting the enchantment. So if we were, in theory, to find a +3 club of fire, it would still deal +7, or it would deal +7 plus the 3 for a total of +10 to hit. And we could shillelagh that to do 1d8 plus 8, 5 from this strength and 3 from the +3 club, as well as, 1d6 fire damage. So you could take a magical club or quarterstaff and actually shillelagh it to continue using it. You don't have to just find random sticks off the ground, allowing you to actually use more powerful and more interesting weapons as you level up. That being said, we're not currently at a stage where we'll have magic items. I'm kind of left off the appearance, backstory, and personality, as well as the name of this character, because I don't want to really adjust too much of somebody's perception of how to build a character. Though, as you can see, we do have a very interesting mix of a barbarian that dabbles a little bit in druidic magic. But, all in all, this character is now done. If you feel like I've missed something or I've done something wrong, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. And if this helped you, please feel free to give me a shout out and maybe suggest this video to your friends. But until then, have fun.